Thousands cross the horizon toward their shattered homes in Gaza, an exodus shaped by loss, longing, and the faintest of hope. Men, women, and children are returning to the lands they once inhabited, lands they abandoned out of fear and fire. The scenes are bitter and uplifted at once. The silhouettes of homes, now just debris, appear on the horizon. One woman said, "I'm happy to be going home, even though my house was destroyed during the beginning of the war. I don't mind going there. The alternative is being on the streets like now." Her voice trembled, but her resolve was clear. There is little left in the Gaza they once knew. Centuries-old neighborhoods have been bombarded, flattened under relentless Israeli bombardments in a war that has raged for nearly 2 years. The enclave is now devoid of electricity, water, or sanitation, and rubble blocks every road. Still, people return. "We know it will be a while before we get to remove it," said another returning resident. "But even if we must set our tents up on top of the rubble, we will do that." This cycle of dispossession and return is not new. Palestinians have been displaced and forced back before, forced from their homes, then compelled to return under shifting fronts. In recent months, Israeli operations pushed many Palestinians southward in Gaza, prompting accusations that the strategy constitutes a policy of displace and replace. Some Palestinian advocates and observers have characterized that as a kind of ethnic cleansing. Others note that official Israeli discourse has framed parts of the migration as voluntary, a term widely rejected by those fleeing bombs and gunfire. Yet today, that policy appears to be on pause. Under a newly brokered ceasefire, movements northward have resumed and tens of thousands are on the move. The promise of war's end, even a temporary one, haunts their hope. One man recounted the cost of his return. "The money we had for transportation, we paid it to the cart to carry our luggage, so we have to walk to the city. But that's okay, Gaza deserves it." He paused, his breath hitching. "Even if we have to go back crawling, they're walking back into devastation." As they reclaim what was theirs, destroyed though it may be, they utter names, address lost and durable. Nidbraim al-Jaza is one such name, not a figure of legend, but a place, a patch of earth to be re-inhabited. The backdrop to these returns is the newly enforced ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, a fragile pause in the violence. On October 10th, 2025, the agreement took effect, ushering in a 72-hour window for hostage releases and the partial withdrawal of Israeli forces. Israel's military announced that it began pulling back from certain positions in Gaza, while Hamas is expected to release some of the remaining Israeli hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. The ceasefire deal was forged under a US-drafted framework with mediation from Egypt and other regional actors. The agreement, which Israel's cabinet approved days earlier, sets out phases for prisoner exchanges, troop redeployments, and humanitarian aid deliveries. But key elements remain contested: whether Hamas will relinquish arms, how reconstruction will be managed, and the extent of Israel's long-term presence in Gaza. Israel has warned it will maintain military presence until Hamas is disarmed. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that Israeli forces would remain in Gaza until that condition is met. He offered assurances about peace expansion, but underscored that the truce is conditional. The humanitarian landscape in Gaza is dire. Humanitarian organizations have warned that Israel's plan to allow 600 aid trucks a day is insufficient given the damage and acute needs on the ground. Reports suggest that at least 90% of Gaza's housing and infrastructure is damaged or destroyed. Over the course of the conflict, Palestinian authorities estimate that more than 67,000 people have been killed, with many more wounded and displaced. From the Israeli side, the war began in October 2023, following a Hamas attack that resulted in the loss of over 1,000 lives in Israel. Although the January 2025 ceasefire held briefly, it collapsed in March when Israel launched surprise airstrikes that reignited the conflict. The resumption of violence killed hundreds and marked the end of that truce. In the spring and summer months, Israel mounted large-scale ground offensives across Gaza, including in neighborhoods such as Shuja'iyya, with significant civilian casualties. The Shuja'iyya offensive, in particular, lasted from early April until August, blending into broader assaults on Gaza City. In July, a new assault was launched in Deir al-Balah, though Israel withdrew from parts of that area amid the ceasefire. Despite the trauma, tens of thousands of Palestinians are now walking north again, passing damaged highways and ruins, carrying whatever they can. In Gaza City, families emerged from southern displacement zones, some on foot, others via donkey carts or vans, with belongings in tow and intent coded in every step. The same exact road, a correspondent noted, the only lifeline for Palestinians now to go back to their homes in Gaza and the northern part of the enclave. Families dismantle makeshift tents and carry them northward, intending to re-establish life there, even atop rubble. Many returnees find almost no intact structure. They face the immediate needs of shelter, food, clean water, sanitation and medical care. The scale of rebuilding is immense. One man returning to the ruins of his home said, "This was not the first time they've been forced from their homes, not the first time they've returned." He traced the loops of displacement that have marked Gaza's recent history. He recounted how recent Israeli offensives pushed Gaza City's population south. An offensive that pushed deeper into Gaza City forced Palestinians to move south. In his telling, many believe that such strategy was intended to render certain areas ethnically cleansed. Many Palestinians say this was a prelude to ethnic cleansing, yet official tactics belie that narrative. Israel's so-called displace and replace strategy is not new, nor is it a secret, he observed. Though officials have used euphemisms like voluntary migration, little of it is voluntary while people are under fire. Now, under the terms of the truce, he believes the inward movement of Israelis has halted. For now, this policy has been stopped by the ceasefire. In the silence between bombs, Palestinians whisper hope. Palestinians say they hope now perhaps the war is really over. They speak of sacrifices endured. The money we had for transportation, we paid it to the cart to carry our luggage. Their steps are measured. We have to walk to the city, but that's okay. Gaza deserves it. He added, even if we have to go back crawling, they're walking back into devastation. In those words, the ruin and the reclamation merge. The ceasefire means more than a pause in bullets. It represents a fragile opening, a window to rebuild, negotiate and redraw futures. But that window is precarious. Under its terms, Hamas is to release Israeli hostages over the next 72 hours. Israel is to free roughly 1,950 Palestinian prisoners in exchange. Israeli troops have partially withdrawn from major Gaza urban zones, relocating to agreed positions. Aid flows are supposed to increase, with Israel committing to allow 600 trucks per day. But Israel insists it will maintain a military footprint until Hamas is disarmed, a condition not yet agreed by the movement. Observers caution that the ceasefire is fragile. Some note that Israeli airstrikes continue even after the supposed truce's start. Critics warn deeper negotiations are looming over governance in Gaza, reconstruction, arms control and long-term sovereignty. Reconstruction itself will be a mammoth task. By some estimates, more than 90% of homes and infrastructure in Gaza have been destroyed or severely damaged. Remote sensing studies suggest that nearly 2 out of every 3 buildings in Gaza sustained damage in the conflict's first year alone. Thousands of tons of rubble must be cleared before new foundations are laid. Critical services, electricity, water, waste must be rebuilt almost from scratch, and humanitarian stocks, supply chains and funding must converge. The returnees, driven by necessity and memory, face a landscape redefined by conflict. Some will erect tents atop debris, others will press into ruins with scaffolding, bricks or bare hands. One man's voice stayed in my mind, "We are returning." It is a simple sentence, heavy with meaning, a bookend to years of displacement and a quiet insistence that presence itself can be resistance. Whether the truce will hold long enough for meaningful rebuilding remains uncertain. But in the shell-scoured streets of Gaza, in the eyes of those walking home, you can read in the dust the shape of defiance.